Sweet. Um, okay, well, I guess I'm back online. Um, so yesterday, I was working on my IRC bot in C, and I got kind of stuck on doing parsing the buffer of my socket, and so tonight, what I'm going to decide to work on instead is signal handling, some refactor and cleanup, maybe do some lexing, and then if time provided, Pong a ping. The interesting thing about that is the IRC spec, they will ping you, your client, every so often, and when you receive that, you ought to send a Pong back, so that's what that means. But where I left off yesterday was reading in this buffer here. I finally figured out what the problem was later, and the video isn't uploaded. That's because I'm so new to Twitch. I had no idea how to make a video even last for longer than, well, just the live stream. So what ended up happening was that the way I was reading from the buffer was kind of incorrect, and that's the reason why I couldn't get the sort of output that I was looking for with my IRC with my IRC bot. So the specific problem is that the read buffer from, well, the read function from C, it's a blocking call. I guess there's ways to make it non-blocking, but I'm not going to go into that tonight or ever probably. But for right now, it's a blocking read. It will read in a certain amount of packets, or the kernel will put a certain amount of text into this buffer that you pass into it. And sometimes when that buffer overflows, it's going to try to rewrite to that buffer with the next set of characters, or that, and also it's going to potentially split up the data stream. And according to the spec for IRC, what we're looking for is a terminating carriage return. So it starts with a /r and then a /n immediately following that. And that's what denotes a command or a line or whatever coming from the server, or going to the server for that matter. So the problem is that what I needed to do was I needed to read the current character of the buffer. In this case, it's going to be the /n, and then immediately afterwards, my output buffer check to make sure that the previous character is the /r, and then that way, once that condition is true, I'm going to go ahead and set the last line of my buffer, which would be, or my output buffer, which would be where the /r is at. Set that to a null terminating character to end the string. Pass that into my handle IRC command, and then since I allocated this output buffer per line, I'm going to go ahead and null it out, reallocate, reset the character count, and continue on with execution to look at the next character in the input buffer. So I finally figured that all out. It turns out I was doing everything right. I don't have the code per se to show what I had going on last time, but essentially it was this, where I was trying to read in the character by character, and then try to fill my output buffer and do it line by line, and then pass it into some sort of function. But that's all working now. So tonight, like I said, I kind of want to start off with signal handling. So when we terminate a process, sometimes we want to perform some sort of cleanup action. And the way to do that is through signal handling. And conveniently, there is an API for this. So what's going to happen is we're going to create some functions. They're going to bind to a signal, and depending what that signal is, it's going to either look for an exit, or an idle, whatever. The processor is what kind of sets the signal, and we're going to just enact on that when that signal is actually sent. For those of you who may have watched last time or last night, I was running my debugger and the run command quite frequently. But according to the spec for IRC, we need to send a quit command whenever we leave. This is a clean way to do it. This is as defined in the spec. You may see me, pull it up on my. I have it loaded on my browser already, but you may see me pull it up every now and then to kind of check up on it. So anyway, what we need to do is we need to send this command. So what I have done here previously was I set up a socket. And this just kind of does the basic, setup for it, establish the connection, and then once it's connected, what we can do is we can send commands to it. Right here I have a loop that kind of looks at this commands array and kind of just sends them all at once. This is kind of what gets us going into the channel. So, I just want to demonstrate that to show you what's going on with this. Just to show that I actually indeed fixed my problem. So we're going to build it. We're going to get some of this output back, and here in a minute it's going to do the message of the day. I've actually increased my buffer size, my read-in buffer, to be double the length of a full line in IRC, which is defined by 512 characters, 510 explicitly without the carriage return. So that's all that output there, and just to show you that it's actually working, I have this little channel created on the free node where if you want to, you can log into it. It's the IP address is 38, 22, 9, 70, 22. I don't know exactly which free node this is. I guess it's the standard freenode.net IP address. And then I created this channel flols test. And if you want to go ahead and get in there, you can. And you can start typing, and it'll show up on the screen. So we'll just do that just now. My bot is CEZIZLE. So that's just the name I gave it. And I typed in hello world, and here it is in the being streamed to my console output, standard in, or standard out, sorry. So we can kind of see like the basics of the spec being played out right here. We have what's known as the prefix. So this kind of shows you where the message came from. The actual command that was ran from the server, and this was private message. So this is sending a private message directly to my client. Every other client will receive something similar. And then I don't know what this part is. I think this is the parameter for the command, so this would be the channel. And then noted by this last colon here, hello world is the string and the message that was sent. So that's that. You can just kind of type whatever in there, and it just will work, and it'll show up on my screen instantaneously because my buffer is working and everything's hunky-dory. As mentioned earlier, the server just sent me a ping, and what I want to do is I'd want to send a pong back, but we may not get to that tonight. I'm only going to be doing this for about an hour tonight, so let's see here. But we're just going to continue on and work with signals, because when I click this stop socket fun, or the stop socket fun is what I call this application. When I click that, stop, I want the application to send a quick command to the IRC server to let it know that I have closed the connection. So we're going to go ahead and do that. And let's get started on here. So it's been a long time since I've ever even tried to work with a signal in here, so I'm going to have to do some quick Googling to kind of find the API for it. Generally speaking, sorry, I just got a text. Generally speaking, it should be pretty easy to find. I don't even know what I was going to say. Never mind. Forget about it. I have no idea what I'm talking about. So let's do this. We'll just do C, I guess. see if we can find an API for it. We have the Linux man page now. The Linux man page is really nice. Hopefully Apple has implemented this. Now Apple is supposed to be POSIX compliant, which means that essentially anything that deals with hardcore kernel processing stuff or operating system stuff is kind of standard. So Linux is POSIX compliant. Apple's supposed to be. I don't know about other operating systems. Windows is not. Go figure. So let's go ahead and see if I can actually include this into my. Well, it'd be best if I read it first, but we have to get it in there to make sure it at least works. Okay, so I guess there is some variation to it. Oops, sorry. I guess there is some variation to it. Let's see here. Okay. Okay, so what we're going to be looking for is we're going to be looking for a signum. That's the actual thing that is going to, what we're going to bind to. That's the actual thing we're going to try to bind to. I forget which one specifically for process termination is. There's like maybe a couple we might want to look at. They might be defined somewhere in here. If not, that's okay. We can always find them somewhere else. So really the setup is going to be this. We're going to have a signal. We're going to bind it to a number, and we're going to pass in a signal handler T type, which is just a function pointer, a void, and it gets passed in an int. I do not know what that int is, but I'm assuming I don't really care. So let's go ahead and try to use it. I think it will work. I don't think there's going to be any like special compiling stuff I need to put in there. So I'm going to go ahead and see if that signal T is created. Whoops. Trying to do Command F here. Signal T. Oh, nope, that's not what it's called. Handler? No, hold on. Gotta go back to the browser here. Sig handler T, my bad. I can remember this. Well, it doesn't appear to be defined, but that's okay. Maybe that's what the man page was just telling me, is that maybe I need to, I don't know, probably define it myself, just with the copy and paste, but it doesn't really matter. Okay, so in my main program, why don't I go ahead and set that up? So I need to create the function for it, so we'll just call it terminate, well, signal termination handler. I'll do, and I guess this is the signal number, I guess, I don't know. We'll just go ahead and declare that up here. Well, you know what, I take that back. Why don't we go ahead and create a prototype for that and declare it at the bottom in good old-fashioned. At some point I'm going to start creating a header file for this application, but for right now I don't really care to do so. The challenge here though is, and we'll come back to that, but the challenge here though is I do have two threads going on. Because that read is blocking, I went ahead and split that off into another thread, so that's what this read IRC is, using the P thread. Again, another POSIX thing, API thing. I went ahead and split this off into its own thread. So this thread right here is going to be main execution, or the main thread. But the problem is that the socket connection handler is defined in the main thread, but I somehow need to get it to the signal handler. Now, the nice thing, I guess, well, I don't know how this all plays out, but using this here, at least with with the P threads, you can pass in a function pointer, and it will, yeah, you pass in a function pointer to your function that handles the callback, and then you would pass in some void pointer of whatever you want in there. So I don't know how I'm going to do this, but what I need to do is I need to figure out how to get this, how to get the socket number into this function, into this callback function. So the problem is that since this is the main thread, I mean, I guess it's not really a problem. Like, I could make it shared amongst both the threads. That could be fine, but I don't like to introduce global variables if I can avoid it. But that might have to be the solution here, unfortunately, because in order to send a socket, we have to know what socket we're sending it, an actual string for the command, and then the length of the string for the command. I don't know what that is. I'd have to look at that later, what that 0 means, but um, okay, well, I think what I'll do is I'll just I hate doing this. I'm about to go ahead and make it into global function. I could, yeah. See, I don't know how that int gets passed in. So, yeah, okay. All right. I'm gonna do what people probably shouldn't do, if they can avoid it. Just go ahead and make that global. Now it's gonna be shared between two threads. Since I'm writing this application, I know that I'm not going to overwrite this variable in my other thread, but that is something in my second thread, but that is something we need to be concerned about. Well, since it's my what I meant to say is since it's my application, we don't need to be concerned about it. But if we're going to work on this with other people, you might want to put some locking in there in case they override it. But anyway, that's neither here nor there now. So I went ahead and I defined it globally to the application. So I have this function prototype here that I need to implement down here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a send. What did I call it? I called it sock, right? Not doc, sock. It's going to be a quit command. And let's see here, the length of it is the character count plus 1. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're going to pass in 4 there. Well, plus 1, so 5. And then 0, right? So hopefully when we bind the handler, it will go ahead and send that. And we might be able to see that down here when it comes time for it. Actually, I know we can. We'll go ahead and add a little sanity check for ourselves. Set quit command, right? Go ahead and do that. Give that a new line, because why not? And then we'll go ahead and we'll create our signal. Yeah, there's a lot of things here. I don't even know. I don't know a whole lot of these. Interesting. This returns back that function pointer, or well, I don't even know, but interesting. Huh. Okay, well, I'll go ahead and I'll implement that function. I think either this, well, hold on, maybe I don't know if this sends the signal or if it actually handles it. Now I think about it, I might need to think about this before I jump the gun. What else we got? Sig action, sig suspend, BSD signal, whatever the hell that is. I want to say I'm pretty sure I'm on the right function, but just in case, let's go ahead and see what sig action is. Yeah, no, definitely not that. Signal handling. So, okay, I just want to double check. I'm not looking at the comments, and I don't think I can read the comments if there are any. Well, okay, here we go. Yep, no comments. So hopefully you guys aren't hounding me too bad on that. So what signal do we want to bind to? That's the next question. Can that be caught or ignored? So I was about to say maybe sig kill and sig stop is the one we'd want. I don't know. Maybe that means something else. Okay, so signal sensitive. Okay, handler, which is either okay. Okay, if the signal is delivered to the process, then one of the following happens. Okay. Oh, okay. So the integer that's being passed into our function pointer is whether or not we know if it's succeeded. Well, if it's going to be ignored or not. Then default action associated with the signal, C signal. Okay, we'll go ahead and open that new tab for now. Or I guess it is set with the argument. I don't know. Whatever, we can try this out. Why not? Go ahead and do sig kill and sig stop. So we'll go ahead and pass that in, and we'll give it a reference to my signal termination handler. Okay, and then we'll go ahead and we'll do it to sig stop. And let's see if this works. So I'll go ahead and do the cool jazz. Built just fine. Let's go ahead and open up my little tester thingamajigger here. Type in some commands. Cool. Whoop. There it is. Oh, nope. Never mind. Oh, I guess it joined a little. There's a little bit of delay in that join there. Yeah, so there we go. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and click to stop. And, yep, that did not happen. Because ideally we would see the send quit command, or something here for that matter. Yeah. Go ahead back to the docs. Let's see. Return. Yeah, I doubt the. Oh. What do you know? The effects of signal in a multi-threaded process are unspecified. Well, shit. Yeah, I doubt. Yeah, I don't know. This might be a little bit more complicated than I originally thought. Yeah, I don't know. Well, let's just continue reading on with this. Okay, so according to the behavior of a process, okay, the behavior of a process is undefined after it ignores either one of these. That was not generated by killer arrays. Interdivision by 0 is an undefined result. Okay. On some architectures, it will generate a, I don't even know how to even pronounce that. May generate, okay, cool. I guess that's some sort of error signal. Signal safety for list of asyncs. Oh, here we go. I wonder what this does. Cool. That doesn't really tell me much. Interesting how that works. The only portable use, well, I don't really care about portability right now. I've used this in a different project before. A long time ago. I don't even think I have the code for it anymore, so I can't look at that. Yeah, I have no clue. Well, we can at least try looking at this, see what this is. Sorry, this just got boring. I'm just doing a lot of reading here. Maybe I'm doing it wrong. Maybe there is a command I need, or something that I need to look at. All right, so we're just going to do sitestackoverflow.com. This is my little cheat way to Google things for Stack Overflow, and we'll just do signal handling. See if that returns anything. Oh, let's see what this first result says. Oh boy. Okay, so interesting. This guy has something to say about it, but I'm not really interested in that. What I'm interested in is seeing a code example. Interesting. So it looks like there's some settings. So we can create a signal handler. I don't know what sig empty set is. Why there's being a reference to some sort of mask. No flags. Sig action. So maybe sig action on sig int. Call that. Interesting. Maybe this is what I need to do. I don't know if I used that before. Whoa. Sig action. Let's look at that. Examine and change a signal action. I don't know about changing it. Oh boy. Okay. Void function pointer passed in an int. Another one. Except with an int and sig info pointer and a void pointer. Ugh, this looks complicated. Though he did say more elegant in that Stack Overflow post I looked at earlier. Good lord. Man. Jeez. There's a lot of information here that I do not care to go through on a live stream. We may have to skip this and move on to something else. I sure hope not. I kind of want to give this another shot. Real quick, see if I can just do anything. Then fork. Oh, I don't want to do that. I'm kind of already doing that with thread. Essentially, a fork is just creating another a child process as opposed to doing doing a thread. Child prints ghosts and exits. The parent makes. So we've got a race condition of the parent. Oh my. Huh. It could be entirely possible I'm not hitting the right actual signal number. So what I want to be hitting is exit code 15. Maybe I should have just looked at that in the first place. Gosh, I must be dumb. Look at that. I'm looking at 17 and 9. Wow, I am a complete moron because since it's an integer, what does that do? And we'll go ahead and start it up. I swear if that's it. Let's go ahead and let it connect. Get through everything. It's going to take a couple more seconds here, or that already joined. Ah, it already joined. I just didn't get the sound notification. That worked. And send the command. Whoa, there we go. Well, that was it. Well, I can't believe that. Now, I mean, I want it for all three of these, honestly, but it would be nice to know what 15 is. So apparently, I was doing it right all along. I don't like when I do that, because it means I don't. I don't like when that happens to me, because it means that I don't fully understand like what's actually going on, and it's kind of embarrassing. But I mean, we're all programmers. It happens. So sig terminate. So software termination from a kill. Interesting. Okay, well, we'll go ahead and replace the magic number 15 with the actual macro. Is there anything else interesting in here I might want? EMT instruction, wherever that is. Yeah, I have no clue. Floating point exception? Nah. Well, maybe. Maybe I want to have a handler for everything, if I'm being completely honest here, just just because, you know, if anything, you know, really terminates the program. But that's programmer error. Kill's good. Bus error, highly doubt that's going to happen. Segmentation violation, that could very well happen. I mean, we are working with C, and it's entirely possible that we try to access some unknown memory location, or we try to do something stupid. Bad argument call to system call? Nah. Write a pipe with no alarm clock? Definitely not. Definitely this one. That's the one we're just looking at for the software termination. Urgent condition on I/O channel. Yeah, whatever that means. Sendable stop signal not from TTY. Okay. I mean, I'm already looking for that anyway. I don't know what TTY stands for. I could Google it. Sendable stop signal not from TTY. Yeah, well, we'll go ahead and do this one too. Definitely not the next one after that. It says continue stop process. Yeah, that sounds like a load of, well, that sounds like a can of worms that we really don't want to open. Continued stop process, definitely not. Parent on child or stop or exit. I'm not forking it. Two readers, GGP union, or PGRP, don't know what that stands for. In case you guys haven't noticed, GCC or GNU people or whomever, I like to refer to them as neckbeards. They love their acronyms. Let me tell you, it's kind of annoying for, you know, if you don't know what they really stand for. But once you learn it, it's not so bad, I guess. But it is super annoying. TTIN, yeah, I have no clue. I guess that's all I need to look at, really. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, window size changes, I think not. Yeah, exceed CPU time limit. Has anyone ever in their entire life ever gotten that? I don't know of anyone. Usually the CPU is pretty good at stopping it itself from doing whatever this, I imagine, is. But either that or the OS will hit it first. Who knows? Well, anyway, I'm pretty pleased with that. So let's go ahead and knock that off the list. So let's see here. Refactor and cleanup. Okay, cool. So this whole file is a complete mess. I'm thinking about putting this up on GitHub, but if I were to do that, I would want to make it look at least a little bit more pretty. First of all, I'm going to go ahead and we'll go ahead and look at the sock variable, since that's the first thing in my list. Why don't I go ahead and rename that to... Now, normal people would just go ahead and do like a find and replace. See, we have an issue right up there, an issue right there, so that's probably not the best idea. So we'll just have to take it one at a time, I guess. Okay, what do I want to name them? So this is the actual like file, I don't want to say pointer, but it's like the number, file descriptor, I think. Number, fildes, yeah, file descriptor. So we're going to call that socket descriptor, I guess, if I spelled that right. Probably not. Nope. DS. Description, described, description. Wow. Oh, here we go. The first use of that on this man page. Like I said, those guys love to shorthand things as much as possible. So we'll go ahead and use that. So let's kind of look for its usages. So we'll go ahead and change that there. If that's not -1, that's my check. We're going to go ahead and name it there, rename it there, and then we're going to pass in a reference to that here. We can clean up that next. And here's another good usage of that. And then here. Speaking of which, I'm going to go ahead and invoke that shutdown command as well. Well, no, maybe not, because it's going to send the quit. So what's going to happen is the process is going to send the quit to the server, so that's cool. But the process, or the socket command will send the quit to IRC. So that should terminate this right here if the buffer's still going, because it's going to send a 0 packet back or whatever, something that's going to cause it to stop execution. But the question is, do I need to do the shutdown? Now, common sense tells us that we probably should run the shutdown command because it's going to clean up whatever resources that I created with the socket. But I also know that processes, since they're kind of sandbox, they will kind of like try to do the cleanup for me anyway. But just to be safe and for good practice, because why not, I'll go ahead and add the shutdown here. And we'll go ahead and add the socket descriptor, and then what was the thing? Shutdown RDWR. So I'll just do this right here. Cool. And then go ahead and quickly rename that. This is where things get a little interesting because this happens on the main thread, and it's entirely possible this could happen before this actually stops. So we might have to think about that a little bit. That would be an interesting situation, to say the least. Hopefully nothing bad happens. So maybe I shouldn't do it, but we'll think about it later. And I believe that's it, other than, yeah, that's being passed in. Okay, so cool. That's that. So that was refactored. Read IRC. I do not like this naming. I do not like this name I have here. Really, this is the... I want to call this the IRC read buffer thread. We'll go ahead and name it that way so that I kind of know what that is. It is a thread. This is what I was talking about earlier, passing in a void pointer of whatever the hell we want. And this is specifically for the read buffer. So what we're going to do here is I want to rename this one, since the read buffer is going to, the IRC read buffer thread is going to read from IRC, and then I'm going to create an output buffer for output that's going to pass in a string into this function here. So this one should probably be called handle IRC command. Well. Yeah, that's what it's currently named. I don't know how I feel about it, but I would like to say I would probably call it like parse IRC line. That makes more sense because we're expecting to get a line out of that. Now, it would be nice if I did, whatever the C standard is, and I don't even know if it's like the C standard per se, actually, but or any standard for that matter. But maybe what I ought to do is I ought to pass in the length of the line. So we'll go ahead and call it that. Here I have another name of socket. Let's just look for those use cases. Yeah, it's kind of all over the place there too. So I can't just do a replace on that. But I also want to call that the socket descriptor too. That could be problematic because it's defined right here as a statically global variable. So we might have to come back to that a little bit later. And then the signal termination handler. Yeah, I guess that's okay. I'll leave it. I'll leave it as that. But just for conversation's sake, I'll add an underscore there. So we'll go ahead and down here and fix that. Cool. Now we changed the prototype of this function. So what that means is now the nice thing about C-Line is that it has refactoring pieces to it. So maybe I ought to like demonstrate this IDE. It's a nice one. So just by pushing on my computer Option Enter, I was able to pull up this little refactoring thing here, so I can change the type of all declarations to that, or change it to that, or I can do some other refactorings, but really what I want to do is I want to change it to that, so push Enter, done. So that's that. I don't know about calling it size, though. I don't know why I called it. It should be line length. I guess it didn't really pick that up. We'll just go ahead and fix that there. Yep. And then that gets passed in the line. Sweet, sweet, sweet. So there's that. And let's see here. I'm going to go ahead and remove this last command because we do not want the application to quit on itself the moment we connect. That would be kind of bad. Let's see, what else can I do? Parse IRC line length, signal termination handler, have that, cool. I'm pretty pleased with that. Are there any errors so far? Yep, there is one. Too few arguments being passed. I knew that was going to happen. The nice thing here is we have a count variable. So I'm going to go ahead and just call it that because that is the line length. We might want to do +1 on that though, because we are adding the that to that. Well, no, yeah, -1. We'll just call it that. I think that's the right size. Whatever. If not, I can always do strlen, but I don't want to have to do that here because that would slow this function down further, because that's not necessary. Instead of type int, we'll refactor this function here in a little bit. Just kind of going through all the things here. So we have our signals set up, cool. Commands array length. Really, I should probably move that closer to where it's being used, which is right here. Hold on a second. My cat likes to sit on me as I'm on my laptop. Let's see here. Move that closer to where it's at. Really, the address piece here, so the ADDR, I don't really know what that means per se. I kind of like copied this code from other places. I think it stands for socket address, so we're just going to call that whoops. Oh yeah, I'll demonstrate. Alt Option, rename to, and then we'll call it socket address. Sweet. And that's that. Read thread. Again, I don't like calling it the read thread. It's the IRC buffer thread, so we're just going to call this the, go ahead and rename, whoops. I don't even get any options for that. Am I even using it? Well, I know I am because it's not being grayed out. Well, it's used in multiple places. I'm curious as to why it wouldn't let me edit that. So why don't I call it the IRC buffer read thread. Nah, I'm not going to name it that. That's I can't name it the same as the function, so I'll call it pthread IRC buffer read buffer. Sorry, I'll name it IRC read buffer. Cool. Then since this address, it doesn't need the socket, it appears, to actually do anything. Oh wait, yeah, it does need. No, it doesn't need the socket. So we're gonna go ahead and move that up here just to make it a little cleaner. Actually, no, screw it. Maybe I'll just do this. Doing my definitions up there in good old C fashion. It's not needed in this case, just because they're already being defined. I don't need to do the assignments at the top, but this kind of gets a little messy with all these branching statements. Okay. Might want to do some cleanup here at some point. Thinking about having a go-to statement. Now, people don't generally like those, but I have a lot of potential of a lot of cleanup I need to do, so I might want to do that at some point. But I'm pretty pleased with this main function for now. So what I ought to do is I'm going to probably leave this alone now. Everything's properly named. Maybe not commands, but that's a pretty common abbreviation, so that works. Cool. All right, now let's actually work on the thread. So here's where things get interesting. So what I had in mind for this refactor is definitely like rename a lot of variables. I'm probably not going to shift code around too much here. This is definitely going to be like a variable rename refactor because I've kind of already fine-tuned this to the way I want it. I could be, really clever and do some pointer math here and do things with that, but let's be honest, who but some crazy person knows how to read that. But before I do that, maybe I'll look to see if I have any chat messages. Nope, definitely not. Okay, cool, that's fine. I'm cool with that. That's questions to answer, for sure. No, but feel free to ask questions. I just don't know if I'll be able to, get to them. Okay, so, all right, so the crazy thing here is that pthreads with its function pointer requires you to have a void pointer being passed in. So what that means is because it's whatever I need it to be, I need to cast it into something else to what's actually being passed in, and in this case I'm passing in a pointer to an integer. So I got to create an int pointer, cast it from void pointer to int pointer, and then down here I got to dereference that. So I don't like calling it sock or socket, for instance. Like really what this ought to be called, this is kind of like the, I'll just call it like the thread, dare I say event args. Like, I mean, just, I work with C# a lot, and a lot of other languages like to use like some sort of like message, would be their generic whatever the hell it is, or event args or something like that. So I'll just call it thread args. So we'll go ahead and change it up here so that way we know what's going on. Now it's not entirely inherently clear that what the args are, but that's okay. We're C developers, so we should be able to look at this code and kind of figure that out. So we'll go ahead and change it to that. But the crazy thing is, though, like, so currently I'm passing in the socket through the event args right here, or through the thread args. But really, I define this as a global variable. So honestly, I could just get rid of that, and then I can just go ahead and get the socket descriptor and mosey on down over here. Pass that in, and we're going to pass in null where the thread is actually created. So right here I have a reference to that socket descriptor. Instead, we're going to pass in a null pointer. Cool. And then len. I don't know about you guys, but I don't know what the hell length means. So we're going to call this. We're going to use the CLion refactor tool here if it would let me. Control Shift F. Definitely not 4. I don't know. That might be in Windows. That might kill things. I don't even know. We'll go ahead and see what this does. Command or Control T. Ah, cool. So I'll just do Control T. We'll rename it to. Well, really, this is bytes read from bytes. Num bytes read. Cool. We'll name it that. I and CNT. CNT was supposed to be my character count. So I will go ahead and name it as that, so that way we know what it is. Character count, cool. Or position, one of the two. So actually what I ought to do is I ought to name this again. So we'll do this output character position. Cool. Output character position, cool. Instead of I'll go ahead and I'll rename that to, now I is a pretty common like index here, so I'll leave I, but the important thing to remember here, and actually this kind of tripped me up last night, when you're reading in the number bytes read, the interesting thing about a lot of operating system CPUs and things like that is that really a character represents 1 byte on a lot of systems. So in this case, it nicely correlates that the number of bytes read is equivalent to the number of bytes that was inserted into the buffer the next time this while loop went in. So conveniently, I could loop over that and it's a-okay because the number of the numbers are the same. I'm trying to think of a situation of where that might not be the case. I can't think of that right now, and I think that's fine. We're just having fun anyway, so I'll leave it as that. I did rename this last night. I had this called like completely different. I just called it buff, and I thought that was stupid. So to help myself solve this problem that I was running into last night, it helped me to rename this variable to actually socket read buffer. Similarly to output, we're going to call this the output buffer. Cool. And then here we're going to allocate it. Now, in good practice, it would be well for us to check to make sure that we actually had the space available to allocate that. Because I'm just trying to think, if I were to throw this bot on my server, my VPS, and say go look at this channel, it's very likely that since I have 2 gigabytes of RAM on it, I think I do, or maybe it's 512. I don't know. It's a DigitalOcean box, right? $10 a month. So if I threw this, application on there, it's very likely, or it could be possible that the computer will run out of memory. However, the operating system does do a good job of swapping, things in and out of storage in low memory situations. So I might be okay to not check that, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't. But for the sake of this application, I'm not going to. Because I'm only allocating 512 bytes, and the program probably, well, it could crash, I guess, but even if it did, I don't care. It's not like that this bot is like anything mission critical. Now, if I were to, the original intent behind this bot is to kind of make it be like a thing that just kind of gathers, text throughout the day, and then I can send it to my email, or email the whatever happened in chat to my email client, so I can get kind of like a daily digest. Because currently I'm using this thing called ZNC, which is a proxy bot thing that just kind of sits on a server, and it will do something similar to this. It's an IRC bot. It's essentially what it is, slash server at the same time. But I'm not going to go into any more details than that. But anyway, point is, if this bot crashes, I don't care. So I'm not going to check for over allocating memory, and the reason is because suppose I do check for it. Okay, so suppose I do check to make sure that the memory exists and it's there. Well, if the error happens, well, what am I going to do with it? I mean, for one, I should terminate this thread. So that's a start. But what other things do I need to clean up after that? And this early in the application, I mean, I guess I should, but again, I don't really, I don't care. I'm sorry, sorry, listeners, watchers. I don't care. Yell at me all you want. Anyway, so moving on. Oh, just another tidbit here. So earlier I mentioned that the buffer length for IRC is 512. I went ahead and doubled that, so I can kind of have a very big buffer. I may have already mentioned that already, but so anyway. Moving on, so I have the socket read buffer equals n, output buffer character position -1 equal r. That reads very nice. I like that. Output buffer, okay, sweet. Parse IRC line, output buffer, output character position. So this actually is of size t. Here I have it as an int. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, size t. Oh, for those of you who don't know, size t is an unsigned long. Just go here and then I guess that's as far as the rabbit hole goes according to the Mac. Apple stuff. You can Google it. It'll explain to you that it's just an unsigned variable that's often used in a lot of APIs. And then size t is the opposite of signed. It's unsigned, so it allows for negative numbers, which the read does allow for. So that's why I'm always checking for greater than 0. Now, I did read last night that I probably should do proper error checking on this read call here instead of just saying greater than 0. But you know what? I don't care. That would be an exercise for you guys if you're following along. So with that said, I'm just going to go through the remainder of the code here. Output buffer equal null, cool. To null that out, and then we're going to reallocate. Again, I don't care if there's no memory. Reset the character position back to 0, sweet. And then go ahead and read in the character, assign it, up the position, and return null when the thread stops execution. Well, sweet. That's that. Okay, so that's it for all I really had planned tonight. Like I said, I was only going to spend an hour on this, and I've kind of reached that. I'm a few minutes before the end of it, but I think next time when I'm going to get started on is we'll look into lexing, which is essentially we're going to tokenize. We're going to look at the input. Well, I don't have it open here anymore, I guess. But what we're going to do is we're going to look at the, well, let's check to make sure it builds. I'm sure it does. Great. What we're going to do next time is we're going to look at the input coming in, that stream of text line by line. So that's why I wanted to read line by line. And we're going to look at that and we're going to tokenize it. And then once we tokenize it, then what we can do is we can start parsing out the actual commands, so we can actually implement functionality that's going to enact when those commands are sent to my IRC bot. Now, there's a lot of techniques out there to do this. I'm going to do the simplest one just because, for argument's sake, it's simple. And there's no need to do any like crazy recursive descent or anything like that. It's best to just keep it linear, smooth, done. And I don't want to get too much into compiler theory and compiling and interpretation too much anyway, but that's kind of like another hobby of mine that would be useful for this project. So I might bring a little bit of that into this, and we'll probably do that next time. Or at least get started on that. There's a lot of refactoring I'm going to have to do. In fact, I might even introduce like a lot of API myself, like that's going to handle that, and then maybe we can get a little taste of what object-oriented programming looks like in C. I know what it sounds like. Oh no, it can't be done. It can to an extent. The only thing you can't really do is multiple inheritance or method overloading. And maybe kind of overriding if you're clever with memory, but anyway, that's beside the point. Well, that's all I got tonight. I'm going to go look at the comments. Again, nothing on chat, so that's cool. So, sweet. That's it. This time this video will save, so it will show up when it's done, and then I will probably load it up to YouTube later if I can. If I could download it. If not, then so be it. Anyways, have a nice night. Stop.